Now to the woman responsible for stabbing her then 12-year-old classmate to please a fictional character known as Slender Man. She has been captured after escaping from a group home.
To let Ella and her family know I'm sorry.
This is one of the wildest, ridiculous, and most unbelievable stories to ever come out of Waukesha, Wisconsin. And what we're talking about is the Slender Man stabbing. The attackers were 12 years old at the time, I guess 6th graders.
Children kill people too. And if you put a knife or a gun in their hands, they can be just as deadly as an adult.
Two of these girls had a plan to go ahead and plunge a knife into the third girl.
When people show the propensity to kill, believe them, right? Whether they're 12 or whether they're 112. They got them some type of mental health treatment. Some people have to be detained because of their mental health. That's just a fact of life.
Your peers the force of what they believe and your imagination coming together create insidious moments like this.
Hill of Justice is sponsored and produced by Jermaine Delmas Studios.
All right, this is one of the wildest, ridiculous, and most unbelievable stories to ever come out of Waukesha, Wisconsin. And what we're talking about is the Slender Man stabbing. And what makes this unique is that the attackers were 12 years old at the time, I guess 6th graders. And what came to the forefront was Morgan Geyser, who was one of the perpetrators. She was taken into custody in Illinois on the 23rd after escaping a group home the day prior. So this has reignited what Slender Man was all about and what these now I would believe women are up against. So we're going to go ahead and talk about what happened, how it happened, and why it happened. And we'll talk about the internet in its infancy as it related to, influence, parenting, and some of the blind spots that we just missed, and maybe we're still missing it at this point in time. I'm Jerome Hill, and with me is retired Sheriff Victor Hill. You got to take a look at it. What can only be described as insane.
I agree. The biggest issue that I got with this, Jerome, is, and I had to deal with this problem when I was sheriff, is everybody want to look at these folks as they're just children. Now, I know she's not a child now, but when it happened, they're just children. I don't know if people understand that children kill people too. And if you put a knife or a gun in their hands, they can be just as deadly as an adult. So I think what bothered me most about this case is the level of low security. If you got a person that's serving time for attempted murder, there's certain security that needs to be there no matter what. They've already shown that they have the ability to attempt to take a life or take a life. Mm-hmm. So how she ended up in a group home with an ankle monitor, I'm not sure.
Okay. I'll explain a little bit about how that happened.
Exactly.
Yeah, so in May 2014, we had these 3 12-year-old girls, okay, Payton, Morgan, and Anissa. They're having a regular sleepover, of course, doing what they regularly do at that time, eat movies, pizza, and watching all types of stuff. So, of course, nothing unusual about that, right? But 2 of these girls had a plan to go ahead and plunge a knife into the third girl. And that third girl's name was Payton, I believe. So basically the next morning they tell their folks, hey, guess what? We're going to go outside and play. They go past the tree line where nobody sees them. 2 of them hold down the girl and starts plunging her with a knife 19 times, barely nicking some of her vital organs. So they leave as if nothing happened. The girl, she's able to stumble and finally collapses on a bike trail where a cyclist comes up to them and was able to discover that person. Police find the two girls and they asked them what happened. They admitted it. They was like, hey, we did this. And they said, why would you do something like this? And they said, to please Slender Man, an internet fictional character that was basically made out of some type of Photoshop paranoia, create a character. And these people believed, and it started taking a life of its own earlier on in the internet. This is where parents should have known, but they didn't know at that point in time. There's greater consciousness now, but they should have known back then that, there's all types of horribleness going on the internet. And it took a life of its own where people were putting in different horror stories about this fictional character. But guess what? To the most vulnerable, they believed it. And they really believed that this character existed. And in order to protect their own families, because this is what they gathered on the internet, that they could protect their families by killing this person.
Okay, Jerome. As kids, I like Batman, you like Superman. We still do. I don't remember you jumping off a building trying to fly when you saw it. We got to quit making excuses. They know right from wrong. Okay. I understand that they're children, but you got to stop making excuses for, not you, but I'm talking about society and the system. Right. When people show the propensity to kill, believe them. Right. Whether they're 12 or whether they're 112. If they kill someone or try to kill someone and it's not self-defense, there's a certain level of security that needs to be handled if they're under the custody of the state or whatever at all times. They've already shown the propensity for that. We're not going to go deep into this, but we're trained to look for pre-attack indicators where people give indications they're about to get violent when you're in law enforcement. So anytime someone is in there for taking a life or whatever, to say, okay, well, they did that when they were 12, or, well, they're just kids. Okay, kids just don't go around killing people. That's not normal child behavior. And
glad you brought that up. Not normal child behavior, because it was a factor in this. And I'll tell you why. They basically found them NGI. And for those who don't know what NGI is, it's not guilty because reason of insanity. And they were put through a psychological test. And sure enough, one of them had the beginning stages of schizophrenia. And the parents totally missed it. And they just didn't know what they had in front of them. And so they knew some things were odd, but just thinking that it was just a teenager. So what do we do then?
Well, there's a lot that we can do is not being done. We talked a little bit about this, I think, on a live, and that's about what happened in this country with mental health. 1963, Kennedy signs the Mental Health Act, and I'm sure he was well-intentioned. They were thinking that they could transfer people from asylums to outpatient care and put them back into society. And that's just not practical. It doesn't work. We see it every day. We see people on subways stabbing women, setting them on fire. A lot of these people, if they're already in a mental health asylum, detention center, whatever you want to call it, it's safe for them, safe for society. They're somewhere where they can get treatment, be treated humanely. But they can't be out in society because they're not capable of doing it without hurting someone or hurting themselves. And their families can't care for them because they don't have the things that are needed to deal with those type of people, from the medication to secure a facility to safety restraint chairs, to the things that are needed when you're dealing with people like that. So you're right. First, the parents missed it because maybe if they'd gotten them some type of mental health treatment, it could have prevented that. But it goes beyond mental health treatment. It's not as simple as, if you go talk to this guy every week or you take this pill every week, you won't kill anybody. some people have to be detained because of their mental health. That's just a fact of life. And we've got to go back to having mental health detention facilities. People say we're criminalizing mental health. I agree with that. That is happening. But the way to not criminalize it is to have the type of facilities where when people show those mental states that are known to lead to violence, active shooters, stabbings, whatever, that they're placed somewhere because their family are not going to be able to handle that type of thing. And that's different from jail. They're not. It's just that based on their mental health, they're a threat to others, themselves, to property. So for their safety, they live at this particular place. And that's what should have happened before. And even if it didn't happen before, it should have happened after. It shouldn't have been a group home where you can cut off an ankle bracelet.
Right.
But that's how that has to be handled. But go ahead.
Yeah. So one of the women were, by reason of insanity, was basically sentenced or committed to 25 years under supervision afterwards. And then for the other, it's 40 years. So maybe not in this time period, but in the distant future, somebody's going to have to reckon with this. And this is where, does time, intensive therapy fix some of these issues? Or do we look at, or did the prosecution miss the mark? And what I mean by that is the prosecution, looking at this maybe in a juvenile sense, didn't have it, or what the laws could ask them to do is, hey, guess what? This is what the most you can do for a juvenile at this particular point. But there's a day of reckoning coming. Have no illusions.
But how many lives are going to be lost if it's not handled correctly? If you sentence a 12-year-old to 23 years, if you sentence a 12-year-old to 40 years or whatever like that, they're never going to truly be able to go into society and have a normal life and work. And
because they're stunted already.
They're stunted already. And you've already acknowledged the fact that they're dealing with some type of schizophrenia or mental health condition.
Right. Right.
So those are the people that need to be in a mental health facility, a secure mental health facility, not a mental health facility where you can just leave anytime you want, not where there's not the type of people to deal with a violent outbreak if that happens. It has to be a secure mental health facility. They can receive visitors. I'm not saying that they can't leave, but it has to be lived in a controlled environment. Maybe they can have a field trip, but it has to be a safety field trip or something. But that's what has to happen. If you let them, we've seen the results of it. We've seen all these active shooters. We've seen what's happened on the subways. Right. So, how do you say, okay, well, you stabbed someone 19 times, but an ankle monitor in a group home? How do you know they're not going to stab somebody in a group home? And
Right.
then an ankle monitors is another thing too. The ankle monitors is only as good as the system monitoring. You have to have people consistently monitoring. We've seen the ankle monitor companies where folks have been going where they want for a while, and it's never reported to the sheriff's office or the authorities. Maybe they use it as a backtrack investigation, but it has to be very, very strict that the minute that thing activates, okay, it's activating. Okay, so is somebody responding? And how fast is the response time? And they're so easy, they're not impossible to cut off as we see.
Mhm.
So it has to be a more secure facility. In order for us to protect society, we have to have secure facilities for violent mental health people to be. Everyone that's mental health is not necessarily violent.
Right.
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 But
Right.
the ones that are and show the pre-attack indicators or have a past history, they have to be in a secure area in order to give the public the protection that they deserve.
Right. So we have these outbreaks of internet sites. This one was created from something called creepy sites. So they had this fictional character. And then the YouTube also helped out with adding stories to this mythical character. They weren't the only ones to believe in some nonsense like this. You had grown ass adults having at this. And they crowdsourced a lot of this information and made this bigger than life. My contention is, what stops that from now? Even now that you have more people putting in a whole bunch more information than we ever had before, this is going to happen again.
Yeah, but here's why I take issue with Jerome. Okay, we've had mythical creatures for as long as we can remember, from the Loch Ness Monster to Bigfoot to whatever. And we've even had mythical creatures, hell, the Candyman, whatever. How many people have seen that those movies or heard those legends, and then they went out and started stabbing people because of it? Okay, if we have people that believe something to the point to they go out and they start killing people or trying to kill people, that's a certain level of delusion that should be detected early. And when it's detected, it has to be put in check. They have to be in a place where they're safe. And if they can't stop it ahead of time, once it happens, they should be in a secure facility. Some people are going to have to be in a secure facility the rest of their life. That's just a fact. They're not going to be able to cure their violent tendencies. And some people, maybe they can get to a point, but that's going to take evaluation and some type of proven method that these people can go in society without doing something like that again. And with these two, there's no real proof of that.
Well, the problem with this case, or with these two women, is that parents missed it, right? And we know that in society, people are just going to not catch these clues that these things are happening. We're talking about schools are not going to catch it. We're talking about parents are not going to catch it. We're talking about neighborhoods are not going to catch it. So we
Now they
have,
catch it, they just don't.
or they ignore it, right?
They ignore it. And some people ignore it because they don't want the stigma or the conflict or whatever. Now, let me tell you something. Every person that has been arrested for violence, I can't remember not one of them where somebody did say, I always knew something wasn't right about that guy. Or you find some type of police report or some incident where they were acting out of character. And unfortunately, we've seen that, not under my watch, but when I was a patrolman, a detective, there are people who worked with us that everyone knew something was wrong, and no one did absolutely nothing. When I became sheriff and I was in charge, if I saw that, I cut the order, hey, get them to go see somebody and to get a fit for duty. And fit for duty doesn't necessarily mean physical, it also means mental.
Right.
You could be fit for duty. Like, does he have the ability to do the job? Can he shoot? Can he run? Can he jump a fence? But also, is there something going on with this guy that is he still right? Because we got a responsibility because we're giving a person a gun and a car, which is another two-tongue bullet, and aiming it at the public. So if you see something or they start saying stuff, when I was a patrolman, I knew a guy that talked about suicide for years. It probably took 2-3 years before a sergeant finally said, hey, this guy's talking about suicide. We need to get him some help. What about all the other supervisors? What about
Mm.
all the jokes in the squad room? Was he just talking to get attention? Well, I guess so, because he didn't take his own life.
But let's find out.
But let's find out to make sure.
Right. So
Right.
online role play is huge. I mean, we can go back in the day all the way to Dungeons and Dragons and how that, these fantasy games that people, there's all types of perversions out there. However, our most vulnerable always get caught under the, to your point, of course, everybody's seen Jason, everybody's seen Freddy Krueger, everybody's seen these type of, murderous, heinous individuals going about and taking people's lives. However, you get into these online role plays, not anything I've been a part of, but from what I understand, that has been, it has been detrimental to people's mental health, for sure.
What do you mean not been a part of? Isn't that an S on your cap and on your chest right now?
And the only reason why I wear this is because it symbolizes hope. But
Exactly, but there's nothing wrong with role playing, having fun, or whatever like that. But again, I don't remember you trying to fly or trying to run through a brick wall or anything like that. If it happened, Dad never said anything. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Right.
So you were able to process, even as a child, hey, I like this guy, I admire the story, but I can't fly
Right. But people
unless it's
can't
Delta.
differentiate
Right.
stuff, because
Then
people
that's a
post it in character saying things like, I saw him in the woods, or you must obey him. To young minds, I mean, that's impressionable.
it. Well, then why isn't every 12-year-old that played that game stabbing people?
Well, I'm not saying that it's everybody,
Right.
but
Right. Right.
for those vulnerable individuals, this is something that's very, 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 for at least for them, those individuals, this is spot on. It speaks to something inside them.
No, I get what you're saying, but again, we gotta get back to effective parenting. Parenting should know what games their kids are playing. Listen, parents know if their kids are acting a little off. The problem may be if the parents are off, then they may think it's normal.
Mhm.
But even if that's not the case, there's got to be some professional in the community, in the school system, law enforcement, social services that sees this, and we've got to do a better job of identifying it. You know, I've done some interesting crime stuff, and the common denominator in a lot of them is these folks are obviously got some type of issue. Like the lady that was living in the house with and what she was doing with the windows, but it turns out her son was in there dead for all of those days. You're not gonna tell me somebody has never looked at this woman and said, "Hey, something's wrong." And it took teachers saying, "Okay, well, the kid hasn't come to school. Can someone go look?" There's a lot of signs there, and people just, well, be nice, don't say anything. And until people realize that, until everybody has to see something, say something, and do something, more people are going to lose their lives unnecessarily.
Sure. And, this also speaks about the culture of peer pressure, and what actually your peers can, the force of what they believe and your imagination coming together to create insidious moments like this.
Absolutely.
you know
Absolutely.
so we got not only that, and then we have kids alone on the internet by themselves, with no type of guidance whatsoever.
Yeah.
And we have that problem. And then, of course, if you're trying to build up an urban legend, you want to make it as scary or as mysterious as you possibly can. These are the primal fears that people have, like, inherently in humans. We're afraid of the dark. Why was that? Because for many, many, many years ago, as we were matriculating through human history, bad things happen in the dark. So that has stuck into our DNA. So now people play off of those fears, and they have now created not only this mythical monster that we were talking about, but now I pose this question to you, because this is a copycat world that we live in. Now that these embers are burning, what's to say that somebody else doesn't create something else now and create this nonsense again?
Again, it's not a matter what people create. They're going to create whatever. I mean, you and I've watched Candyman, and I've never went and cut off the lights and said Candyman in the mirror 3 times or whatever it is. It's just a show. What we've got to do is look for people who show those type of mental health stuff and take action immediately. That's what has to happen. I mean, if we all go see a Candyman movie, and then one of the people we went to see the Candyman movie with is in a room saying Candyman, that might be a sign that, hey, something ain't right with this person, and that we need to let someone authorities know. I'm sure they still do it, but the Secret Service, um, when they were on top of their game, and I'm sure they're back on top of their game now, they would have a list of people. If there were 80 people that made threats to a United States president or whatever like that, they would monitor them and go see where they're at if the president was going to that particular area. So they were preempting it. These are people who are making statements about the commander in chief or whatever. They need to be monitored. Something needs to be done preemptively.
Mhm.
And I knew that was a procedure back in the day, and I'm sure it's got to be a procedure now. But we've got to do that on every level now. Anybody making any type of weird statements, whether it's about the CEO of an insurance company, whether it's about the NFL. We've seen all these folks just pop up. Hey, I had an injury in high school. Let me go shoot at the NFL office and go to the wrong office. Or some guy blames the head of the insurance for something and he goes and stalks him or whatever. All of these people showed signs that people either didn't take serious or they're just, yeah, he's just whatever. That has to stop. I mean, we're gonna have to probably start having classes in public schooling that teach students that not just here in the school but in life, mental health is an issue. If you have a friend, a family member that exhibit these type of signs, your civic duty is to report this to authorities, to social services, and then we got to hold them accountable, and they have to actually do things. You know, it was interesting to me when I was sheriff. Anytime someone sent me pictures of young people in our community holding guns, I would send somebody to check it out, and I would have, and I had to force. Well, sheriff, you know, they just holding the guns. Okay, they're holding guns, making gang signs. Okay, are they real guns? I don't know. Okay, well, we might need to find out. Are they stolen? Did somebody buy them? Did their parents know they got guns? And you know, and sometimes it turned out to be.
They put it in the public.
But they put it in the public. I
Right.
never forget. And
You
I
gotta
went
go
on. I went on one of these calls myself. It was these kids. They were holding guns. When we got to the house, it was a very nice house. Talked to the parents. Hey, listen. We saw some pictures. Is this your son? Yeah. This is friends, and they're looking sharp. Well, I didn't know they had guns. And it turns out that some of these guns weren't. Some were just BB guns that look real or whatever. But the parents didn't even know that.
Right.
But just by going there and they had no idea that their son and his friends was taking pictures on social media with bandanas, gang signs, and guns or whatever, and they really appreciated it.
Right.
And who knows what we saved those kids from, or if they kept going down that path and it didn't get checked because they were shook. Oh wow, the sheriff and some deputies are here because we took a picture. But who knows what could have happened out of that?
Right.
And the parents were able to get on it and everything like that. And that's what we have to get to. If someone's showing signs of weird behavior, somebody needs to make a house call. If someone's showing signs of firearms, okay, well, is it a real firearm? Okay, well, where'd you get it from? Okay, oh my goodness, it comes back stolen. Who knows how many lives could have been saved if that protocol was followed consistently every day? And the problem that we're facing is if you're proactive, if you prevent crime, people come up with all kind of stuff. It's you're violating the civil rights. You're doing this. You're doing that, and they're criminalizing proactive and preventive policing. And it's like, okay, hey, let's not do anything until after somebody gets killed. And we're basically even putting our cops in a dangerous position because every time we change the rules on them. It's almost to the point now where, okay, well, they didn't have a gun. Okay, well, they had a gun. Well, they weren't pointing a gun at you. Okay, well, they pointed a gun at you, but they didn't shoot. And we're almost telling folks that they got to wait for something bad to happen to someone in order to do anything.
Which is
and
my
if that
point.
continues to happen, more people are going to be stabbed, shot. We're going to see more of this. And more escapes like this.
Well, I agree with you. And this is the reason why I'm talking to you about this. Because now more than ever before, mental health has declined here in the United States. We're setting up the tinderbox of all things that can happen, that we're talking about all types of every part one crime you can think of is rising because of this main issue. And so, of course, somebody who's 12 years old, you know, two kids feeding off each other about this belief. If grown men and women are getting duped, what makes you think that 12-year-olds can't?
But the real issue is this. I don't think, can we cure mental health? I hope so. It hasn't happened yet. But we can control the territory and control the environment. You know, the last show we did is a perfect example of what happens when you take control measures away. We did a show about the jail I was once in command of. And so when you criminalize using nonviolent ways to control violent people and you take that away, then what do you end up with? 7 dead bodies, numerous stabbings, drugs, extortions, whatever. But when those mechanisms were in place to make sure they couldn't do it anyway, no one got killed. None of that stuff was going on. What I see this situation in so many situations the same. If these things were looked at with a preventative policy procedure, we wouldn't even be here. But when you tell law enforcement and social services, don't get involved until someone's injured or killed, or if you get involved before they get injured and killed and you criminalize them and you fire them and you try to lock them up or whatever, we're going to continue to see more and more deaths. The issue is not the mental health thing. There's going to be people who are going to believe in Bigfoot. Okay. But if we can prevent them from going out and looking for Bigfoot and end up killing somebody just because they thought it was Bigfoot, that's what we need to be worried about.
Yeah, our environment is such right now that, to your point, yeah, we can go ahead and there are mechanisms out there that the law is protecting certain matters for preventable deaths, but we got victims, we got future victims that are going to fall on the pavement, grass, yard somewhere because we're not being proactive. Of the monies, it's not going into social services. They're overwhelmed, oftentimes, for the ones who are sharp and can pick up on something, good for them. But we have systems that are decaying left and right.
We are. And it's not social services that's going to stop this stuff. It's going to have to be actual action taken, actual detention, probably the best examples is Washington and Memphis. You got a group of folks. We got friends like that. I got one I argue with every week. Well, we need more social programs. Listen, I can give you $1 billion for social programs. And if the National Guard didn't go there and put a stop to it, that was not going to stop the killing. You saying, hey, we got a social program now. People are not going to be, okay, well, let's stop killing each other. First, you got to stop it. And that unfortunately takes force. That takes National Guard coming in and locking everything down. And suddenly no one's getting killed or whatever like that. That's what it takes to get it done. Now, after you stop the killing, then we can experiment with social programs if we want to. But you got to stop the killing first.
Yeah, and you would have to have an occupying force there until you felt as though that the social programs were able to take over.
Absolutely.
Reasonably well enough to keep that peace. And I'm not quite sure if anybody has the bandwidth right now because it's polarized on each side, unfortunately. And this continues to keep on. This is going to continue to be until somebody has the heart enough to say, we got to see it from both sides.
Right. But we also got to understand what works and when it works. Okay, can a social program help? Maybe, but not now when folks are gunning each other down the street. Can an ankle monitor be appropriate? Well, not for a person that stabbed a person 19 times in a group home. Just a little bit of common sense here. She should have been in a more secure environment. Then there wouldn't have been an escape. And then if things had been done ahead of time, maybe this girl, the victim, wouldn't have to endure being stabbed 19 times. I'm glad she survived.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and give it to Payton. She's a survivor. She certainly helped her own cause. That's strength right there. And if she ever sees this, much kudos from the both of us.
Absolutely. She's a very mentally strong young woman.
Yes, she is, on top of that, physically and mentally. So that'll be all for this show. We're taking a look at the analytics, and many of you who are watching and liking, subscribing to the show, we appreciate you. For the ones that are taking a look at us in the casual sense, or the ones who've subscribed to us, go ahead and hit the notification bell. That would be a great help to us. Many of you are looking at us. But for our next videos that come on, hit the notification bell. We deeply appreciate it. Until then, we'll talk to you later.